Greetings, everyone. I'm your host, Chris Garris, joined today by my co host, Allison Leach Hyde, and welcome to the Transporter Room. We'd like to give a special shout out to our Patreon associate producers, Chris Knapp and Jonathan Capps. We are absolutely thrilled to introduce a true expert in the world of modern pop culture and criticism, John Orquiola, a senior writer and new and classic TV editor for Screen Rant. With thousands of published articles, John is one of the most prolific and respected voices in geek culture journalism. He is known for spearheading Screen Rant's feature coverage on the entire Star Trek franchise, providing sharp analysis and exclusive interviews with the biggest names in the universe. Beyond Star Trek, John's expertise spans the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Game of Thrones, Cobra Kai, and classic film theory. Today, we're especially excited to dive into his unique perspective on the current state of the Star Trek universe, get his insider takes on what makes great pop culture, and discuss the process of covering the biggest shows and movies in Hollywood. Now let's beam in John. Hello, John. How are you doing?
Wow, what an intro. Hi, Chris. Hi, Allison. I'm very, very happy to be here. Thank you so much for this invitation. This is great.
Oh, you're welcome.
So excited to talk to you today.
Yes, me too. I reached out to you because, you're in all the same live chats that Alice and I are both in most of the time. Every Friday night you're in, not every Friday night, but still more than one Friday night. We'll see you back of the head inside the Star Trek and Chill. Even sometimes on the main viewer. Sometimes you're physically on the screen in the main viewer or Star Trek and Chill. And so, and just your knowledge of Star Trek is just so good. I mean, obviously you've written thousands and thousands of articles on it. But still, I'd like to know before we get, into this Trek of stuff, how did you get into all of this, into your career? How did you start your career?
My Screen Rant career. Okay, so my origin story.
Yes, sorry. Yes.
Oh, yeah, sure. No,
yes,
I have
your origin story. That's a good way of putting it.
So Screen Rant came about almost by accident. The short version, I guess, of this story is, I've been with Screen Rant now. On January, it'll be 10 years. It'll be the start of year 10.
Oh, wow.
Yes, because I joined January 17th formally. But basically how I got into Screen Rant was kind of a fluke. So it was New Year's Eve, 2016, going into 2017. I was home. I had no plans. And, I'm scrolling Twitter. And I saw a tweet from my friend Albert Ching, who at the time was the managing director of CBR, back when it was called Comic Book Resources. And so his tweet was like, hey, my friend Hannah, who's an editor at Screen Rant, is looking for writers. She's great. You should work for her. That's literally like what it said. Right. So I'd never heard of Screen Rant. I just never heard of it. So I looked it up and I was like, okay, all right. So I had nothing to do and I had nothing to lose. So I fired off an email and I chose 3 articles from Back of the Head, which at the time I had a blog that I started in 2005 where in every movie I saw, I wrote a funny review about. Some are feature length, some are just like, a paragraph or 2. And but those reviews were like me just kind of like being Roger Ebert, but also like telling jokes about movies. And it was only for me. I never cared who read it. Some people did, but most, but that blog, after 10 years of just writing reviews, that blog kind of proved that I could consistently deliver content and of some kind of quality. So I picked out 3 articles or 3 reviews that I wrote from Back of the Head and with a link to it. I wrote a cover letter to Hannah Shaw Williams, who at the time was the features editor at Screen Rant. I think she left in like 2019. But I owe her everything. I always joke, she basically picked me out of the gutter and and put me on. But and so I sent it off on New Year's Eve and then I completely forgot about it. And then like 3 weeks later, I'm at the Sprint store. I'm getting a new cell phone. And right before I turned in my phone and turned it off, like I got an email from Hannah Shaw Williams at Screen Rant, right? So I'm like, okay, hold on a second. Let me look at this, right? And it was like, hi, I want to hire you. Here's a contract. That's basically what it said. So I was like,
what?
Yeah. So I was like, okay. So I forwarded the email to my friend Sean Cronin, who is my oldest friend since the 4th grade. And he lives in Miami and he's an assistant U.S. attorney. So he's kind of my lawyer. And he's also a giant nerd. I'll tell this story if you want about how he got me into Star Trek.
Yeah.
But so I forwarded it to him.
Oh, yeah.
And I was just like, is this legit? Like, take a look at this. And he hits me back a couple of minutes later. And he's like, if I were you, I'd sign it. So I was like, okay. So I got his cell phone, which is probably the least important part of this story. And then I said yes to the contract. So the original contract was 10 feature articles a month. And that ballooned over the years into basically what I do now, which is an insane amount, like 60 a month. So
1 or 2 a day.
I know it sounds crazy, but like I just crank them out. About 3.
Yeah, you do crank them out.
I average 3 a day.
5 days. Yes.
Just 5 days a week.
Wow.
Yeah, 5 days a week. Yeah, it doesn't. It sounds like a lot. It actually isn't. It takes me about an hour to write an article. So a lot of times just research. A lot of times also me as an editor working with the other writers, ideating, which means writing, watching a lot of Star Trek to come up with ideas. So I get paid to watch Star Trek and write.
That's wonderful.
Essentially, and that's. Yeah, and then,
that's great.
And then
job.
Just a little amendment. In 2022, October 2022, back when Paramount had 5 Star Trek shows, which was enough to write about, Screen Rant restructured and created a division specifically for Star Trek, which they offered me to run. So I became what was called the Star Trek beat editor back when Star Trek was called a beat, and then Star Wars became a beat, and then superheroes became a beat, and those became like the 3 pillars of Screen Rant. And so that held until we restructured again in May of this year. But so from October 2022 until May of 2025, I was the head of Star Trek at Screen Rant. I was the Star Trek editor. But obviously in 2023 and 2024, Paramount started canceling all the shows, and so it became harder and harder to maintain a beat based on the fact that there were no longer 5 shows to anchor, plus all the legacy shows, but there were no longer 5 new shows. It became harder and harder to justify.
I mean, that makes sense. I mean, it is hard to continually write new content about things that have been out for some through 60 years, to 50. So that I can understand why that happened. I'm sad it happened because that means we're not getting as much Star Trek, but hopefully.
Yeah, things can turn around.
After this whole thing,
it's going to be very, very different after 2027. I think things are going to change a lot. Probably as much as things changed from 2017 up until today, I think we're going to see that same kind of overhaul of the franchise. Who knows what it'll look like? We don't know who's going to run it. We don't know if it'll be Alex Kurtzman again or somebody else. We just don't know. So
correct. Well, and that's the problem. We don't know what's going to. Nobody outside of that. That boardroom knows what's going to happen.
They may not know what's going to happen yet either. So,
correct. You're right. I don't think they do know. And it's a hard discussion to have because I think you already wrote an article on it today with the new Starfleet Academy poster that came out. I mean. I'm already hearing negativity about just the image. It's Beverly Hills, whatever.
Every Star Trek show gets hit with that. Star Trek fans,
True.
The one thing Star Trek fans hate the most is a new Star Trek show of any type. And that goes all the way back to the Next Generation. Which if I don't know who was alive or who was a kid or who was watching, but you can go back and ask Frakes, go back and ask Marina, go back and ask Patrick or Geordi or LeVar or any of them. They were despised and hated for at least 2 years up until maybe season 3 when it started to turn. But they were the new kids in the block in 1987, 1988, and they were being vilified, and you can ask Connor and Dominic about Enterprise, like now we look back at Enterprise wistfully, like, oh gosh, Enterprise was great. But 25 years ago, no, I was watching Enterprise when it was brand new. And I was one of the only people I knew who liked that show. And,
I liked it. So the 2 people, for sure.
There you go.
It was my freshman year of college that show came out, so I was not watching that one live. I watched that one on Netflix years later. Yeah. But it was just, it hit me at the wrong time in my life. I'm like, I don't have time for this. I'm doing college things, and that's what I did. So,
so the sight unseen hate of Starfleet Academy isn't new. I think Strange New Worlds was maybe the only one that kind of avoided it, at least in the beginning, just because there was so much goodwill around Anson Mount as Captain Pike. I mean, that was probably the only Star Trek show in recent memory that fans actually asked for and got. And so
correct.
And so that kind of escaped the usual hatred of new Star Trek in general. Plus, it was episodic, and it had all the bells and whistles that made it seem like classic Star Trek. So it kind of arrived without a lot of the things that, let's say, Discovery did, when or Lower Decks being an animated comedy, or Prodigy being a kids show.
But Prodigy, but
Prodigy is, I mean, I love all the new Star Trek. Like, none of it has ever been anything I have not liked. I really like Discovery. And I did feel like I was one of the only ones in season 1, like, who was like, no, I like this show. Like, it's good.
I wrote an article at the end of the season called, "Is Star Trek Discovery good?" Yes, it's incredible. And whoa. I did.
Oh yeah, people are mad.
I did not get the responses.
No, I bet not.
Yeah.
Well, and I watched it. Well, first off, I didn't watch it when it came out because I was not going to pay to watch Star Trek.
Oh yeah.
At all. But I don't know what it was. Something was coming down in CBS All Access, and I finally gave in, did the trial, and of course, I still have it. I didn't get rid of the trial, like I never do.
Yeah.
And it was hard. I'll be honest. I'm one of the ones that it was hard to get past the first 2 seasons. I mean, they're fine. I watched it. Mostly it was the Klingons, but still issue. But once they went into the 32nd century, to the future, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it the rest of the series. I think it was just. I'm sorry. I had issues with the technology. Like, how do they have the spore drive when we couldn't even get if we'd had spore drive, then they should have just gone.
Yep.
Found it in the archives.
That's the whole thing. It was a story about how they had this really cool thing and how it couldn't be used. And that's why we have what we have in the Star Trek.
Well, I mean,
but we had to watch the entire story to get there. And a lot of people didn't want to watch the story. They're like, no, this is not my Star Trek. You're like, but we don't know the story yet.
Yeah.
I know. And it was, once I got past all that, it was fine. I enjoyed it. I watched it. And then I was kind of sad to see it go after the end of the, after 5 seasons. Cause I just, again, like they had the ability to wrap it up nicely, unlike other shows did. But so before we get too much diving into the different series, how did you get into Star Trek? What was your gateway to Trek?
Okay, so I remember a couple of years ago, I wrote something that Ryan read on the air in like Virtual Trek Con, because I think this came up as like, what was your origin story? But I'll tell it now.
Hey friends, quick update. This February, the Transporter Room will be beaming into the Star Trek cruise and sharing the experience through new content. The total cost for this away mission is around $8,000. No pressure at all, but if you'd like to help the channel recoup some of that investment, the support link is below. Thanks for being part of the crew.
So I did not grow up, unlike so many people, who have stories. So many people I've met, so many friends who have stories about how, oh yeah, I watched Star Trek with my dad, I watched Star Trek with my grandpa, I watched Star Trek with my mom. It was always on TV. I did not grow up a Star Trek fan. In fact, I actively despise Star Trek for a very, very long time. I was a Star Wars kid. Now I'm going to date myself a bit. I just turned 50 this year.
Okay.
In the early 80s, the first movie I saw was either Superman, the first Superman, or Empire Strikes Back. But I have vivid memories of both of them, of sitting in a movie theater being like 4 or 5 years old and watching these movies. So, so I saw Empire Strikes Back, and my parents, back then the Betamax was brand new, and we had one. And so my parents were like, oh, he loves Star Wars. Let's and they rented like Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan, because it had star in it, in the title.
Yes.
So, they thought it would be just like Star Wars. They popped it in, and at 5 years old, I was not ready for Star Trek II, especially after seeing Star Wars. Star Trek II, to me, it looked cheap. It looked hokey. I was not, I could not process Captain Kirk, the stories of friendship, old age, and death that I adore now. I was 5. I didn't get it. To me, it just So like that was my memory. It was like just actively rejecting Star Trek 2 after seeing The Empire as a little boy. And so I continued onward, not caring about Star Trek at all. I remember, let's flash forward to 1990, The Best of Both Worlds, part one, where my friend Sean, who I mentioned, and my friend Rob were big, big Trekkies. And I remember riding the bus with them to school the day after they saw, or 2 days after they saw The Best of Both Worlds Part One, and they were just debating about what was going to happen. Whether Picard would be rescued, if he's going to stay aboard, if Riker going to be captain, all that stuff. And I just remember I vividly remember sitting there listening to them, like shaking my head, like, just like, you nerds, right?
Yeah.
Right? And then, so like, I could not stand the very thought of Star Trek. Flash forward again to my friend Sean's in college. I think his first year in college. He went to Bowdoin College in Maine, and I visited him for the weekend. And so this is like May of '94, April or May of '94. So it's the last season of TNG. So I'm hanging out with him for the weekend, and he's staying, and he lives in a frat house. And so I was like, hey, what are we doing tonight? It's Saturday night. And I found out his entire frat on Saturday night sits down and watches Star Trek: The Next Generation. And I was,
that's so.
Well, I think so now, but then I was outraged.
Like, no.
Oh, I know. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not what you normally do in a frat.
Right.
Saturday night.
Are you kidding? It's Saturday night. Like we're sitting down watching Star Trek. So with great protest, being a big jerk, I sat down like this. I watched Star Trek: The Next Generation. And okay, so here's the thing. My memory of the episode is completely wrong from what Sean says it was. And I believe him more than I believe my own memory. But my memory of it was that it is the episode with Paul Sorvino as Worf's brother, and where they went through the holographic caves, which is basically the plot of our Star Trek Insurrection, which is probably why it sticks in my head. He says it's a different episode that I don't remember what it is. But in any case, I watched that episode and I liked it. And in spite of myself, and the reason I liked it was Picard. I was just so taken with Patrick Stewart's performance as Captain Picard, like the dignity and the compassion, the intelligence, like all these things were coalescing all together into this thing I'd never quite seen before, and I was just so fascinated by him. So Picard is my gateway drug, my official gateway drug. Just him alone, because that. Even if it wasn't the Paul Sorvino episode, the episode that we probably did watch wasn't very good either. Because a lot of the very late season 7 episodes weren't that great.
Season 7
until All Good Things. Yeah. They were just out of ideas. They were just running on fumes at that point. Like I think Mask.
Yeah, we can talk about Mask.
Yes,
later.
There you go. Mask of season 7 with that time. So I went home to Boston, a Trekkie. Basically, so it's the summer of '94. I went, WLVI TV 56 in Boston, had the repeats of Next Generation and DS9 and the original series. DS9 I kind of saved until a little bit later. I wanted to concentrate on TNG and TOS. But basically, I bought a bunch of blank tapes. I set the VCR and I recorded everything, and I watched it. And I went to Barnes & Noble. I bought the Star Trek Encyclopedia by Michael Okuda, the Star Trek Chronology by Michael Okuda. I spent the whole summer poring over those books and watching Star Trek. And because I also knew that in November, there's going to be the movie where Kirk meets Picard. And I was like super excited for Star Trek Generation. So by the time that movie rolled around in November, I was super ready. And I went with Rob, with all my Star Trek nerd friends, and I was now one of them. And so
nice.
We went to the Sherry, which at the time in the 90s was the best theater in Boston, this giant cavernous 1,000-seat theater. And and we watched Generations. And I loved it. And they hated it.
What?
Oh no!
Well, because we all know what the problems with Generations are, and I agree with that now. But it was my first Star Trek movie on the big screen. It was Kirk meeting Picard, and I thought it was wonderful. I thought it was fantastic. I know now a little bit better.
Oh yeah,
I still like the movie.
Yeah, that's funny that I like your story because I think mine. When you were talking about it, I think my first movie, other than E.T., that I can remember watching in the theaters might have been Return of the Jedi, because I just turned 49, so we're 1 year, we're the same age basically, and so it was Return of the Jedi for me, and I think it might have been Star Trek 4. Would have been the first Star Trek I saw in the theater.
I wish
probably.
I wish I saw it.
Yeah.
If it wasn't that, it would have been 5, unfortunately. But and then, oh God, I remember when. I mean, I like you. I was so excited when you saw Generations coming out on the Enterprise is going to be in the big screen.
Mhm.
Oh my gosh, that was so cool. Um, and now I have, and Allison will know where I'm coming with this. And now I have even a more of an appreciation for Generations because we interviewed Tracy Coco. In fact, it's coming out here a week after next on for YouTube, Patreon tomorrow. And she was telling us about the scene when she gives Marina a hard time about, they fly that Marina crashed ship, but she flew the ship. Tracy told us how she got the option to fly the Enterprise. And because Jonathan was like, Tracy, you want to fly the ship? Yes, because you're a stunt person. You can do all this. So when it comes this way, look that way. Don't look over here and all this stuff. And then she was telling us that so when the pyrotechnics went off, boom, through that stuff, she's getting carried off. And Marina sat in the chair and burned her pants because the embers from the pyrotechnics were in the chair in the seat, and so they had to cut and redo the whole scene again because she had to get a new uniform.
Yep. Tracy got blown up on the bridge of the Enterprise for Generations. Wow. So I love that scene. It's such a great scene. I think Generations was my first Star Trek film in theaters. Wow. I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure my first film was The Sandlot.
Okay.
Yep, because I played softball. So mom was going to take me to the baseball game, the movie. So
in defense of Troy and Marina in that scene, also, I also spent years, saying, "Oh yeah, Troy crashed the Enterprise." But now, as part of my enlightenment as a Star Trek fan, as I evolved, I watched that scene and I realized that saucer section was going to crash no matter what. What Troy did, landed without loss of life. So what she did was heroic, not incompetence.
Yep.
No, absolutely. Yeah, it was going down no matter what you did. It doesn't matter how that happened. Yep. No, she did. But they still love to just give her a hard time for crashing the ship.
It's true. Then she says that it's Tracy's fault, so that's fun to see.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, yeah, and so okay, so obviously like you had Generations. So I'm just gonna go straight to this question because I'm one of the. I think I might be one of the few people, and a lot. I liked Nemesis.
Okay.
What about you? What was your opinion on Star Trek Nemesis?
All right. Okay. Well, all right. I have
you can sugarcoat if you have to.
No, I saw Nemesis once in the theater. I have tried over the years to watch it again, and except for one time, in LA, I have a gang of Star Trek friends, and we spent about a year watching getting together every couple of months and watching every Star Trek movie. So that was the second time last year when I was able to sit through Nemesis like straight through because but generally I just whenever I try to watch it, I just can't get through it. It's terrible.
Man, makes me worried about my taste now in movies.
We like what we like, and for specific reasons.
True.
But it's just awful.
It's not my least favorite Star Trek movie, but it is close.
Oh, what is it? What's your least?
True.
I think it might be mine, honestly. Like I just,
5.
5, really?
I have a hard time with 5.
5, I really, really grew on me over the pandemic when I'd watched it again, and I found it to be a very comforting movie. I mean, it's a bad movie, but it's also like
yes.
But there's things about it that I actually really enjoy, and actually. Last year, when Lawrence Luckinbill put out his autobiography, I got to talk to him for 30 minutes. Mm-hmm. And so I was able to actually tell him that how, over the pandemic, I would watch Star Trek 5. And I really found it to be a comforting movie about friendship. And I understand the noble things they were trying to do, handicapped by a budget, by a bad script, a bad concept of just finding God, which is, already deeply flawed and it's unworkable just as as the basic idea behind the film. But there are things about it I really grew to like, specifically the interaction between the three characters. But I think that's the only movie where you see the three of them together, where they're basically together almost the entire film. They're just
True,
they're
they are.
together. I think it's the only movie where that happens. And so,
Yeah.
and I
Yeah.
feel like they that's the best part about it. But I was able to kind of
Mhm.
tell Lawrence Luckinbill that, and and he appreciated it because he also really loves that film for for his own
Yeah.
Mhm.
reasons. But one of the fun
Yeah.
things about talking to Lawrence Luckinbill about that also was I got to tell him about Cybok in Strange New Worlds, which he had no idea about. He's like, like he'd heard about
Mhm.
it. So I was like, so he was like, so what happens? What happens? So, and I explained it like, yeah, so he's young Cybok. He's got a different name. He's married to a space pirate. He's in a Vulcan prison. His warden is Spock's fiance, and he like his mind was being blown. Like hearing all this, he's like, what?
That's so cool.
Yeah, so that was really great. That was really fun. That was like one of my little highlights, like interview highlights. I really like, that
Oh yeah.
sticks out, in terms of like what a fun thing to be able to do to tell Lawrence Luckinbill like what happens to his character that, or at least in the
Mhm.
prequel version before he got to play him.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Oh
Well,
no, that's so much fun.
okay. First off, I'm just going to say this: was absolutely, and so was Allison and Linda. We were all completely just beside ourselves when I saw you the first time you used
Yeah.
our interview with, I think it was Robbie,
Oh,
Mhm.
for an article. I was like, what? Like, what? What? I texted both. I'm like, look at this.
Here.
I was so. I mean, yeah. I was like, I was not expecting that at all. And so that was just, yeah. I can't even thank you for that.
oh, well,
Just, it was
no problem.
amazing.
Well, first of all, I
I
mean,
mean,
having amazing guests and they're saying newsworthy, quotable things. But also,
mhm,
after you guys kind of invited me on, and there was a couple of weeks in between me coming on here, I
yeah.
did my research. So I watched a bunch of your back episodes.
Yes.
And I was like, wow,
Hmm.
like huge names, good questions, and also fantastic
Yeah.
answers. I mean, and part of my job is to be out there looking for
Hmm.
notable things about Star Trek to write about. So you're providing it.
Well,
So
thank you.
really good job for you guys.
Well, appreciate it. Yeah, it's been a challenge at times, but it's also been, yeah. I so obviously, if you pre Chase Masterson, it was just me
Mhm.
doing it by myself, and then when I got the connection to be able to get Chase on, I was like, there is absolutely no way I am going to be able to talk to her by myself for almost 2 hours, which that was not the plan. That's just the way it worked out. Um, and so that's when we were in one of our free for alls, and after fact said, hey, would you mind coming on and talking to Chase? And
And how could I say no? Because everyone should talk to Chase Masterson because she is the hero we need right now in the world out
mhm,
there helping children be their best selves. Like, how do you not want to talk to her? And also, Deep Space Nine is my favorite Star Trek. So
yeah,
I grew up
Me too.
with Deep Space Nine. And so I'm like, I get to talk to Lita. Lita's awesome. So I was very, very excited to talk to Chase. We
yeah,
had a lovely conversation with Chase, and it was for the
almost 2 hours.
almost 2 hours. And
Yeah,
I don't know.
the longest.
Yeah.
She was not the longest. She was the
No.
second longest.
Wow,
David was the longest. David Livingston was
Yeah.
right at
that's
2 hours.
awesome.
So yeah, it
Yeah.
was great. He was, oh god, he was great too. But
So much fun.
but yeah, so thanks for that. Where I was trying to go with that was, you know, like Clint Howard. I mean, we just did that one. It just came out, and yeah, I mean, you just wrote about it as well. But to think what he has been able to see
Hmm.
and what we talked to him about in Star Trek, oh my gosh,
Yeah,
Oh
it's
yeah, I
it's
mean,
amazing.
from childhood to adulthood, like he's dropped in on this franchise and given us lovely characters along the way is
mhm.
so cool.
Yeah, he's been in every era.
Yeah,
Yes,
Yeah.
every era. Yeah, that's
and
amazing.
I made sure I emailed him. I emailed Ryan and said, "Hey, I highly recommend you bring Clint
He
in
would
for
love
next
to
year
come.
for 60th because he he's the only, other than the three main cast members, he's one of the few um, actors that has been, as you know, all eras of it. He should be at the 60th
Yeah,
anniversary.
absolutely.
It's just should be there. But now, so Allison, I'm gonna start. If you got something, you can ask. I've been yakking.
Well, I mean, there's so many things to talk about.
I'm here.
It's hard not.
I know.
So you have like an enviable position as since you are a journalist. You get to watch things before we do, and you're a fan on top of it. So I'm making an assumption that it is truly the best and hardest thing to do is to do what you do. Because I'm sure you just want to go tell your friends, like, this is so great. But you're like, I can't tell you.
Yes,
So
yes, there's a lot of that. There's a lot of secret keeping. Not just from the things I'm able to see ahead of time, but also things people have, told me in conversations.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of like knowing what not to spill, just like keeping things on a down low. But it's also incredible. One of the things that one of the reasons why I wanted to move to LA when I did right after the pandemic happened, I moved in September 2021, and the 4 years spent in LA for Screen Rant and specifically for Star Trek were the best years of my life. Just absolutely incredible, just like experiences I could never have imagined, and so many of them, and just the ability to get to meet and get to know the people I've been able to meet and get to know has been unreal. And so, and it's pretty amazing that also like the cast of Strange New Worlds, for instance, knows who I am, and like I can kind of DM them on the side, and like they'll hit me back. Like it's amazing. I mean, I've gone drinking.
Yeah.
I'm totally unplanned. I think at least three separate occasions, totally unplanned. I've ended up drinking with Henry Alonso Myers, the editor, the showrunner of Strange New Worlds. So Henry's a great guy. And he loves Star Trek.
Yeah,
he deeply loves Star Trek. He's very knowledgeable. I know his son now. So it's been amazing. But yes, it's a great privilege to be able to meet everybody and engage with them in ways that as a fan you just dream about. But it also has that responsibility of like, well, I represent an outlet. I am a journalist, so you have to maintain that integrity. You maintain that level of trust, so you don't betray anybody. You don't spill secrets that you happen to hear.
Yeah,
know what's on the record, know what's off the record, but still, like overall, incredible. It's an incredible thing, and yes, I mean, I know I'm in a very enviable position. I don't take it for granted. I pinch myself every day for some of the things I get to do, and it's unbelievable.
Well, absolutely. I'm sorry. I'm not. We're not at the level that you are, but still, the fact that we have been able to get the interviews we've gotten. I mean, there's stuff that hasn't even come out yet.
I'm jealous of you. I see your guest. I'm like, wow.
I mean, we've already. It hasn't. It hasn't come out. We've got Aaron. We've already interviewed Aaron Walke, Robin Curtis.
Aaron's a great guy.
Yeah, he was so good.
Aaron's a fantastic guy. He also loves Star Trek. He's super knowledgeable.
Yes.
When the Voyager documentary came, they did the premiere party in Paramount. I guess a year ago, November of 2024.
November 24.
Yeah. So I mean, I was there, and I sat next to Walke. I call him Walke. I sat next to Aaron and like, and watched it with him, which is really cool. He was like, I think my scene's coming up. And then
I know
oh, that's exactly. I mean, let's just be honest. Like, I mean, last weekend or 2 weekends, whatever, it's 3 weekends now. I mean, okay, I never in a million years would have ever thought I would be having my birthday with Sirach and anybody else from Star Trek, and sitting in the VIP room with Shatner on my actual birthday and ask him a question. And so I'm like, what what is this? That just like you said, it just does not compute. But you're right. It also, there's things that, they've told us that we like you said, you just can't, you know what you can and can't say. And even then, I'm assuming like when you're writing an article, you may even have to go back and re-question, like, verify, like, do you want me to write, if they don't say, don't put it in there, but then you think, do I need to, you'll double check just to make sure before you put something out, possibly
Yeah.
every now and then. You're right. It is a privilege. It is a privilege because the instant you screw that up, you're done.
Mm-hmm.
The instant you break that, I mean, I've been so lucky. To talk to Dave Zappone and Lolita and, work with them on, and just, the access we've been given on some stuff is just absolute, it's a privilege. It is 100% a privilege. And like that one, I was curious. So, and what has been your, I don't know, like your fanboy moment on like the red carpet events, or you name it, just like that, the most awe, like, oh my God, I cannot believe I'm actually here.
I have a few. Okay, the first one that pops to mind
I
was
bet.
the first one that popped to mind was completely came out of the blue. Was March of 2020. When did Bill Shatner's "You Can Call Me Bill" come out? Was that last year or the year before? One of the, I'm not sure.
Year
Was
before,
it 2023?
I think.
Oh, me.
I think
That's
it's the
Mr.
year
Google.
before.
Okay. Well, in any
Yeah.
case, the year. Okay, so it was March.
2023.
March of 23 when that documentary came out. It was also like coincided with his birthday. I woke up one morning, I think it was a Wednesday, and I checked my email, and there's an email like, "Hey, would you like to interview Bill Shatner in 2 hours?" I'm like, "Yes, yes."
Let me shower. Where am I going?
Am I prepared? No. like, but of course I'll do it. I'll figure it out. So I did the interview with him. Again, completely out of the blue, totally impromptu. But it was to promote "You Could Call Me Bill." So I did a quick download of what was in the documentary and stuff, and I got to talk to him for about 10 or so minutes, and it was awesome. And the thing is, you hear I've heard all the stories about how Shatner is a tough interview, and he can be, I guess. But I also knew how to approach him innately, which was, don't ask him about Star Trek. Ask him about all the other things he's interested in. So I talked to him about horses. I talked to him about going to space. I talked to him about his philosophy of life, things like that. Things that he wants to espouse upon. And then towards the end, I was like, because it was going well. And so towards the end, I was like, "Would you mind if I ask you about Star Trek?" And at that point, he was like, "Yeah, sure, go ahead." And then I asked him about Leonard.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, so it wasn't like comic book guy in The Simpsons. It's like, in episode 402, the apple, when
Yes.
he doesn't know or care. He doesn't remember. And that's not what he wants to talk about. But I asked him about Leonard a little bit, and so that went really, really well. And then I got an invitation to go to his birthday party. And that was like, that was the premiere of in Culver City, followed by going to the Amazon studios, which is where Desilu, where the original Star Trek was shot back in the 60s, now completely refurbished by Amazon. So there was a party there, and I got to go to that. Strange New Worlds at San Diego Comic-Con 2022, which was one of the great interviews of my life. So what happened was basically, so I got to interview the casts of both Strange New Worlds and Lower Decks. And so at that point in 2022, I'd already done a bunch of interviews with Star Trek people, but everything was on Zoom, and I had never done more than like one or two people at most. But here was like 6 people coming in, right? I think the cast was Anson and Celia, Paul, Chrissy, and Ethan. I think so. It was either 5. There may have been a 6th person, but I think it was those 5. And so I was going to have them all in the room for the first time in person. And the night before, this is a Saturday interview. The night before on Friday night, I'm freaking out because I'm back at the hotel, and I'm like, I'm losing it because I don't know how to do this. I had no idea how to interview 5 people at once, especially not in person. I was losing it. So I was like, okay, so how do I do this? And I started thinking okay, so who knows how to do a multi-person interview? And one of my heroes still is Conan O'Brien, the other person whose style I've completely stolen from. And I remember wait, Conan did a whole series of every summer he'd do Conan Con. He'd go to Comic Con and he'd interview the cast of Game of Thrones, or he'd interview the cast of X-Men Apocalypse or whatever. He'd have them all on stage, all together,
Wow.
and he did multi-person interviews live. So I'm like, what did he do? So I pull him up on YouTube, and I watched him and I realized like his style was so simple. It was basically like, it was basically like, okay, Jon Snow, joke question, Daenerys, joke question, joke question, joke question. And I was like, okay, that's how to do it. And then I thought about it some more about how to act about how to do this interview, and I had it. So the day the interview comes in, and I basically ran to the door and like greeted everybody as they came in, glad handed them, because I was just so excited to meet them anyway, in person. And that morning, I remember I put up an Instagram story with a picture of a Gorn, and I was like, I'm interviewing the cast of Strange New Worlds. We're going to have a good time. Yeah, terrible, terrible pun, but Chrissy Chong loved it and like retweeted it. And so, yeah, so I was like, all right. So I was like, great. This is already going to work. This is already starting out great. They'd already met me on Zoom for the junket for Strange New Worlds. So I met everybody. I sat them all down before the interview started. Just to smooch a little bit. And I told them, okay, so here's what's going to happen. We are not going to talk about season one because at that time it was July of 2022. Season one had already wrapped, and I was like, and had already finished airing on Paramount Plus. And I was like, you guys have probably answered every question you could possibly answer about season one, so we're not going to talk about that. And I also know that you guys have finished season two, but you're all embargoed, and you can't say anything anyway, so we're not going to talk about season two. And they were like, oh, like they were both like, they were all like, oh, what's this? Intrigued. Like, well, no, what's this going to be? This is going to be your victory lap. We're just going to have fun. We're just going to chill out and relax. And they're like, okay. So interview starts, and I think my first question was something about Pike's Quarters, where I was like, so Pike's Quarters, you guys. So I was like, you guys are done filming for season two, right? You guys are on hiatus. So no one's using Pike's Quarters right now, right? Will you Airbnb it to me because I'm ready to move right in, right? And then like Paul goes, wait, how much are we talking? And I go, well, are we negotiating? And then once that happened, right? And then like they got what I was trying to do, and everything loosened up right away. And then when Anson started, I asked Anson about whether or not he could actually cook like Pike in real life, and he just like laughed his ass off. When Anson started cracking jokes, I knew like we were golden, because then everybody would just kind of follow his lead. And then, I asked Celia about Beyonce. It's like, Celia, I know you're a huge Beyonce fan. And Anson goes, yeah, we know. Right. And then, and I asked her about Beyonce, and I asked Chrissy about parkour, and like Celia had no idea that she did parkour, and then I started joking with Ethan about like being a ladies' man because all the girls are after Spock. It was just a great interview. So that stands out in my mind because that was like, to me, that was when I arrived. Like that was like, okay, like I'm golden now, like this is it. And also, it went so well that the Paramount Plus execs afterwards came up to me and they were like, "That was so great! Like, we loved it. Do you have an invite to the VIP party at Ken Ford?" I was like, "No, I don't." It was like, "We'll put you on the list." I'm like, "Yes, you will. Yes, you will."
Oh, wow.
So, and then I went to the party and I got to hang out with everybody. And that was the party where like I walked in and the first person I saw was Henry Alonso Myers, who was talking to Aaron Walke, and I ended up talking to them. Then I gradually saw everybody and chatted with them. But that party really stands out also because Ethan and Jack Quaid, who I interviewed with Lower Decks right after the Strange New Worlds interview, which was a roller coaster, by the way. Let me just say, like, I had no control over that interview whatsoever. Like, I don't think I got through. I don't think I got through 5 questions.
You did not.
Like, they just, like I barely opened my mouth, and then they would just go, and I just hung on for dear life. But that was I shouldn't even be telling the story. That interview was. That time at 10 Forward was basically like I got to talk to Ethan, and Ethan told me like yours was my favorite interview of the whole day, and I was like wow,
Awesome.
like you don't have to say that, like that's incredible.
Yeah.
And then Jack kind of said the same thing also, and then those two guys still were like, what are you drinking? What are you drinking? And I was like the Picard martini, because they were themed drinks. I was like, get this guy the Picard martini. So those two, I almost said those two plowed me with martinis for like an hour while we were just hanging out. And then I was so drunk. I was stumbling drunk walking out of 10 Forward. And I had to go meet my Screen Rant friends like a few blocks away at like a pool hall where everybody was hanging out post Comic-Con to unwind. I have no memory of how I got there. I have no memory of like Yeah. Like I do have a memory of at one point I was kind of heading into traffic, and Tatiana, my editor, like ran out of the thing, grabbed me, and so, so that was my
This
yeah. So
way.
literally
Yeah.
pulled me by my lapel into the pool hall. So that was great. So that stands out. And then the other interview that stands out to me was also a dream interview was Kate Mulgrew. This was last year at Comic Con as well for
Oh,
Prodigy, and this was also a great story because that was Kate Mulgrew, Brett Gray, who was super awesome, who I interviewed over Zoom with Ella Purnell a couple of years when Prodigy first started, and he remembered me, which is really amazing. And Dan and Kevin Hageman, who we just have had such a great rapport because we've had so many interviews over the years, and so the Hagemans and
mhm.
I are also really golden. Like I've run into Kevin Hageman and his family at Universal Studios Hollywood. Like I just ran into them at one point.
Yep.
So
Right.
so this was a great interview also because they were just coming. Like I did my normal thing where I run to the door and I greet them and say hello. And the Hagemans came in first, and I think it was Kevin who was like, "Okay, Kate's coming in and she's coming in hot." I'm like, like why? Like why? What
What does that
happened?
mean?
Right? And he was like, okay, so
What
yeah,
does that
right.
mean?
What does that mean? She goes, well, the last people we interviewed, like they didn't know anything about Star Trek, and and Kate was not happy,
Oh.
and then we told her that we were coming to you, and you know your stuff. I'm like, oh, that's not pressure, right?
No pressure.
So I'm gonna do a horrible Kate Mulgrew impression, but I introduced myself to her and we sat down at the couch and stuff, and she goes, okay, the boys tell me that you know your stuff because the last person we talked to, they didn't know their stuff. But they say you know your stuff. So do you know your stuff? I'm like, I think so. Like I hope so, right? So, but but
I don't know
yeah, but
stuff.
that
Yeah.
interview went so well, because I mean, we talked about Prodigy and stuff, and Kate was amazing. She and Brett had this fantastic like chemistry, and the Hagemans were
Mhm.
just basically sitting. All these interviews are by the way on YouTube if you want to watch them. But the Hagemans were just chilling on
Okay.
the couch
Cool.
watching like Kate just being Kate and being incredible. But at one point, I won Kate over because again, she called me on the spot like, "Do you know your stuff?" Like, and she asked me something about like what I thought about Prodigy, and I remember rambling on and on, like I'm doing right now, about how great Prodigy is. But I called the show deeply satisfying. And then she latched onto that. She was like, deeply satisfying. Yeah, and like again, it's on YouTube. But
Mhm.
that won her over, I guess. So it, fantastic being able to talk to Admiral Jane, but I just call her Admiral, because she even in real
Yeah.
life she has that cadence. She just comes off like she has that
Yes.
gravitas and authority where she just feels like she is the highest level of Starfleet. Um, so
Mhm.
Yes. Agreed.
I said that after watching her at the Voyager panel in
yeah,
Vegas this
yeah,
year.
she is
Mhm.
legit. Like
She she commanded
Mhm.
that stage, period. And when like if
And
she
her crew. I loved that when they were getting Ruly. She's like,
yes. No, I
behave.
mean, even when when Beltran was trying to like, they were asking questions, she basically was like basically telling everybody you are going to answer the question. You know, it was so funny, but and then I think he didn't want to do it. She kind of like, I remember she kind of like hit him, like
Yeah,
you're gonna
she
ask, and
nudged.
yeah, she nudged him, and he's like, oh, okay, the captain says I got to talk or whatever, whatever. But so like, she I mean, I would love to meet her. I've gotten her autograph and a
mm,
selfie with her back in 2024,
yeah,
but that's it.
it was honestly a
I
huge honor, and I'll be honest,
yeah.
I was not a Voyager fan when it was on the air. Voyager was not my show.
Mhm.
I saw some of it, but I didn't watch, but
Yeah.
it was at the time my least favorite of the Star Treks. But as time has gone on and things have evolved, and how can you not have the deepest respect for Kate Mulgrew, for her portrayal of Janeway,
Mhm.
what she has meant to the franchise, the the numerous, countless young women who she's inspired to
Yes.
go into the sciences, to go into STEM, who like and just how
Mhm.
that character and has broadened the audience, and
Yeah.
Mhm.
She's incredible.
Yeah.
She's
I
absolutely incredible.
mean,
Yes.
you've watched our videos. You've heard
Hmm.
Linda talk on some of those interviews. She flat out, I mean, she does what she does because of Kate Mulgrew
Yeah,
and Captain
absolutely.
Janeway.
Yep.
She is a physicist. She's a physics major because of her, and she has zero qualms, and she 100%. That's why she did it. And yeah, I never understood the hate that they had for Voyager when it came out. I did not know that until, again, my first I anyway, not going to get into it, but first time I met Garrett
Hmm.
was in 2024 at the con in San Antonio, Space Con, and it was kind of the end of the day, so real light. And I was a Delta flyer at the time. I was a Delta flyer, and so he knew who I was because we had our Zooms and all that stuff. And so we all just, the group of us were sitting there just for about an hour and a half,
Hmm.
just talking, just visiting. And he was telling us about um, the day after the premiere, after the pilot premiere, aired, the wide range of phone calls and stuff that the
Hmm.
Paramount got received from they loved it, to how can you have a woman in the captain's chair, to we're gonna come blow up the
Yeah,
studio. I was like, what?
yeah.
Yeah.
That made no sense whatsoever.
I will never forget when Voyager premiered. I was a young girl, and all of my fellow young female friends, we were all Star Trek fans. None of the guys were Star Trek fans. So I'm like, they made a Star Trek for us. And so that was super cool. I'm like, this one's for, like, we have a female captain and a female engineer. Like, that is
Yeah.
so cool. So that was big for
Hmm.
for young girls my age at the time. 'Cause what that came out in
95.
95. Yeah.
95, so I was
That's
12. Yeah, I
Star
was
Trek for us is since you brought it up, is actually is such a relevant thing because there's the two sides of it, right? Like the show isn't being made for me, so I hate it. We saw it
yeah.
all this morning for me with the new Starfleet Academy
Yes.
poster. The show is not for
Yeah.
me, so therefore it must not exist. It must never exist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Versus this show is for me, and there should be no other show but what was made for me. You know, um, and
Yeah.
that's not how you grow a franchise, especially after 60 years. And this is a franchise that can encompass so much. It is it
Mhm.
I've been saying this for years now. It is the greatest franchise. It is the greatest of all franchises. It
Yes.
is the most optimistic. It's the most inclusive, the most diverse. It's the one that has the best themes. It has the best vision of the future. It has the best possible hope for all of us to be part of it. And I
Correct.
mean,
Yeah.
and so to be so close-minded about it, to be to be such a gatekeeper about it, is the antithesis of what this franchise is about. It is basically
Correct.
the philosophy of
Yeah.
every villain the franchise has ever had.
Yes.
It stuns me how people can't see that
Mhm.
about even like their own behavior.
Yeah.
I fell victim to it too. I was like that. I grew up in the '90s. South Park was big. Insult comedy was big. You could being a
Oh,
being a
yeah.
jerk
Yeah.
and being funny about it was a thing that was prized. And
Yeah.
so and I approached Voyager that way in the '90s. I was an asshole. Just like kind of how I was about TNG.
Yeah.
Towards my friends.
Mhm.
But hopefully you grow out of it. Hopefully you grow up and you
Correct.
evolve. That's the whole point.
Yeah.
That's the whole point of this game of life, I guess. And especially how when it comes to
Yeah.
Star Trek, we're supposed to be better than this, and we're supposed to try to be better than this, and it doesn't come automatically. It takes work. It takes
It does.
but
Yes.
Well, and we were talking with Yatide last night, and again, it was the interview was more focused on um, the philosophy of Star Trek, kind of like what we were just talking about, And I rewatched, and I don't know if you watched it, but then
at Astra per Aspera,
It has
love
to
it.
yeah,
pass.
Ad Astra Aspera, and I rewatched it again before we interviewed her last night, and I put in my notes, I was like, oh my god, Una's
Hmm.
speech,
Mhm.
and that was what, 2 years ago when
Yeah,
that episode came out. 2022, I
23.
think.
Yeah.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, 23. The fact that her speech about being why she did what she did because she was afraid of being found out. Anyway, I was like, oh my god, how is it that 2 years ago or 3 years ago that speech was going to be so relevant to today,
Yeah,
to
because we haven't really
2025.
changed. We as a species have not changed that much. So it all just
Yeah.
comes back around. And speaking of Ad Astra per Aspera, shout out to Dr. Valerie Weiss, my friend who directed that episode. She did a phenomenal job. She also
Yes.
did the Sellout Who Ate Its Tail for season 3, which I think is the best episode of the season. Um, yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
really?
she's
She did that one
phenomenal.
too?
She's such a great director. She's a lovely person. I got to interview her for Ad
Yes.
Astra back in 2023, and we kind of just hit it off. So we kind of stayed internet friends, and
Mhm.
and she, I mean, I've followed her career now as a director. She's done the Tony and Ziva show for NCIS and a bunch of other things. Yeah,
Oh, cool.
Oh, wow.
she's amazing. She's an amazing person. If you can interview her, you try to get her on the show. She is fantastic.
Okay.
All right, I would love that.
I'll
No,
figure it
Yatida
out.
gave her a shout out. I was talking about certain shots, and she's like, "Oh, that was the director," and so she talked about how great she was. So
Yeah,
she's
she
definitely
had
mentioned in
Awesome.
that interview.
yes, she mentioned she had nothing but praise for her and the entire
Mhm.
writing team
Mm-hmm.
for writing that episode. Um, yeah, I mean, and we could talk about the episodes because like I learned last night, I didn't know there was an extended version of Measure of
I didn't
Man.
know that
I
either.
had no clue.
Where is it?
Oh yes,
I
yes.
did not.
There is an extended version of that, longer than what it. You can. I think it's the one that you can access it on
Okay.
Paramount Plus. I think you just have. I think, unsure. I got to see it. I said this on a previous one, but I got to see it in the Jean Cocteau Theater here in Santa Fe with Melinda
Nice.
Snodgrass, who wrote it, and George R. Martin, because they're best
Amazing.
friends, and it's his theater. And that was, a few years ago. So I'm like, no, you got to go see the extended version of it. It is really good.
Mm-hmm. But I didn't know it existed. I need to
Yeah.
find it one of these
I mean,
days,
that's one of
somehow
the
to find
greatest
it.
episodes of all time.
But yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that, and then you have the Drumhead, obviously, is a great
Mhm.
one as well. And then they had all those, a lot of those were come out right there because you had Measurement, but see, you had Drumhead, Half a Life. Oh my God. That one was hard to
Mhm.
review. Half a Life was very hard to review. When we did it for the seventh row, I was like, ugh. And I actually almost didn't want to do it, but I wanted to hear everybody else's impressions of it, and so I sucked it up and did it. And it's not because I don't like it; it's a great episode. It hits home,
Mhm.
unfortunately, at times. So, but yeah, it's just crazy, and so okay, I don't want to
Okay.
get emotional and all that
That's
stuff
one
now.
of my favorite things about particularly this fandom and how much we care about it. Like, we all have very different
Mhm.
opinions about it, and we're
Oh
willing
yeah,
to talk to each other about it. And a lot of us will listen to each other's, different perspective of it, and can kind of, I mean, maybe not change our mind, but soften our opinions
hmm
about certain things that we don't like
yeah,
about
Mhm.
certain things about Star Trek or episodes. And I do enjoy that a lot in
Yeah, you
this.
can't
absolutely.
like nobody likes everything 100% of everything, I mean, yeah.
No,
But like
no.
you, Allison, like the output of Paramount Plus's Star Trek, by and large, I have liked every series. I think
hmm
the one of the great underrated things that Alex Kurtzman's run has done is diversifying Star Trek in terms of like the kind of shows that we're getting. They're
Mhm.
not all the same. They're not all cookie cutter,
hmm
which is actually one of the things that they're being attacked about. It's like, oh, because it doesn't feel like Star Trek. But you know, from
Yeah.
a comedy like Strange New Worlds, which on paper, I'm sorry, from Lower Decks, which on paper you're like, what? An animated comedy, half-hour comedy, but it's brilliant Star Trek. You know,
Mhm.
and it's
It is.
Yes.
so loving towards Star Trek. Um, or
hmm
Prodigy, which is probably one of the most brilliant shows I've seen in the last several years, regardless of Star Trek, is because it's so beautifully written. It's an incredible adventure story. It's an incredible coming of age story. It has
hmm
such depth to it. So
It's
yeah,
beautiful to watch
yeah.
It
too.
So I think
was.
so many different kinds of Star Trek coming up now at Starfleet Academy. Like, yes, it's YA aimed. It's aimed. It's about young people. And it's funny
hmm
like, why was that okay when we watched the First Duty? And so we spent an hour at Starfleet Academy,
Yeah.
and we hung out with these cadets, and most of these were terrible cadets when you really think about it. Even Wesley was the worst version of Wesley.
Yes. It
Yes.
was the
Yeah,
worst
but
version
why
of
was it
Wes.
okay? I guess because we only spent an hour with them. But like, it, why can't
Mhm.
we spend a whole year with them? Why can't we, see what it's like to
Mhm.
actually be a young person in Starfleet trying to figure it out, and have that be a
Mhm.
metaphor for coming of age, of going to college, and all the things that come with it, and all the things that
Yeah.
come with it. You're away from home for the first time. You meet the opposite sex, and you have that freedom, and maybe you fall in love, and you have the pressures of academics, and you have the pressures of life, of learning life. Plus, oh, by the way, there's a threat to the
Mhm.
Federation that we have to fight because we're all going to die. The galaxy is going to be destroyed. It's like, you know. So I mean,
Yeah.
I think it's a cool
Well,
idea for a show.
I'm mhm.
Well,
I'm
and they've
looking
been
forward to it.
I am too, and I think they've been knocking around this idea
Yeah,
for, like,
absolutely.
decades,
Correct.
doing a cat.
They have.
So, I'm glad they're doing it.
Mhm.
When Paramount first came out with, starting Discovery, and they announced it, what, a year or 2 or 3 years beforehand, that it was gonna be, like, the launch of their streaming service.
Mhm.
That was the day I went and I bought that streaming service. I'm like, "I want money for Star Trek. Here you go. Here is
Mhm.
my $5 a month. I want Star Trek." I'm like, "I don't
Mhm.
care what Star Trek it is. I
Yeah.
want more Star Trek."
Yeah.
So,
Well, exactly, and I'm one of the few people probably that okay, was Section 31 a great movie? No, not at all.
No.
Not at all. But it was still Trek
Mhm.
within reason, and we needed to support it, and when we did a review and discussion about it, I said, "Here's the thing. They took what was supposed to be a series
mhm.
and shrunk it into a 95-minute
Mhm.
movie. So you try taking 10 episodes and making it into an hour and a half and have
Yeah,
it be decent. Not possible. Use not with
it's
what they were trying to do. It's
Yeah.
hard.
Yeah. Section 31.
And so
Ugh. Uh,
I know
yeah.
it's a shame, and but it was not that they're it was because they were forced to do what they had that it was they were forced to do it that way. If they could have done it over the 10 episodes, a series, I think it would have probably been
I
just
mean,
fine.
yes, yes. I mean,
Yeah.
since Section 31 came out, I've kind of had conversations, and I heard some ideas about what could have been if it had gone to series. And I don't know if it would have been great, but like it's a lot better. It's sounded a
yeah,
lot better than what we ended up getting in that condensed version
yeah,
in that 90-minute film.
Mhm.
Um, there was some ambitious stuff that I heard. Some stuff that kind of like I was like, wow, that would have been actually really cool if we got to see it. Um,
Mhm.
but we'll never know, I guess,
No, we'll
unless
never know.
Paramount Skydance all of
you
a sudden
never
says,
know.
"Hey, we want that Section 31 series after all," which I don't know if that what the odds of that are.
I don't think
But
that'll happen.
If they can go get Michelle Yeoh for
well,
that. So,
to me,
yeah,
that's
Well,
what
I
that's what
just
hurts the
I would
most is
want
that as a result of Section 31, we have Michelle Yeoh, Star Trek's first Best Actress Oscar winner. Kind of now she's kind of now marred and stuck in a no man's land
yeah,
because at that point in the 24th century, like it's 2020, 2023, 24, something like that. Yeah, like
yeah,
it's still 40 years ahead of Next Generation. It's too far after
Mhm.
whatever, Star Trek 6. And she's kind of just
Mhm.
lost there, and there's no way to really access her and bring Giorgio back into
Yeah.
whatever is happening in whatever current Star Trek is happening. So it's kind of a loss that
yeah,
she kind of got put in that position.
Yeah. I just multiverse her
exactly.
Sure.
somehow. That's
I
the
mean,
answer
she
to
time
everything,
travels
Yeah.
all
multiverse
the
it.
time.
Time travel. But well, and that's like, we'll probably end it here in a second, but my favorite series still is
Mm.
Enterprise. I mean, and I really, 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 really hope Sussman is able to make something happen
I mean, I've been
with
I've been
United.
trying. I've been trying to help. Um, I've, I've written like a
Thank
dozen
you.
articles about it, so we'll see.
Yeah. And they need their send off. And that's when, if you talk to the Connor and them, and every now and then there's been concern, but I don't think it's going to happen now, is that Enterprise was going to get overlooked this next
Yeah,
year because again, it's falling into the 60th, so everybody's looking at that. But it appears that maybe they're not going to get overlooked. Creations at least doing their best. They've got everybody so far except for Scott
mm,
and Jolene, and Scott said he was coming back. He said that
So
at
they're
the
just
convention.
working out the
The logistics probably,
details.
yeah, and if we can get her, that would be great. But if not, then we got everybody
Right.
that we can get. So, um, but yeah, I mean, I remember it was surprising to me. I asked when we were talking to David Livingston. I asked him, So what did you think of the last episode? The series episode of Enterprise. He'd never seen it.
You can say it that way.
He had
It'll be fine.
Well, he said, and so we actually kind of gave him a little bit of this of how it went, and he was like, oh, he's like,
He's like, no, that's right.
yeah,
He did.
Hot take.
Yeah.
Controversial hot take. I never hated These Are the Voyages, even when the first time I never
didn't
hated it.
hate
I
it.
understood what they were trying to do. Yes, I see all the problems with it. I agree that it didn't service the actual cast of Star Trek Enterprise the way they
Yeah,
should have been. I understood that Rick Berman and Brandon Braga were trying to say goodbye to the entire 18-year legacy that they built, and they were trying to say
yeah,
goodbye to the entire thing. And but there were things about it I did like. Like, first of all, I like all the scenes with Riker pretending to be chef and cooking with the cat. I thought that was really, I thought that was those were really nice little scenes. I
Mhm.
also kind of dug Riker and Troy kind of touring the NX-01, and was this
Yes.
door supposed to automatically open? Things like that. I thought that was
Yeah.
cool, but to me, it's striking to watch them in their colorful, like, pastel costumes, walking
Mhm.
around like this sleek, like, dark gray submarine, and then commenting
Mhm.
on
Yeah.
it. It was like, well, yeah, but your ship is like pastel green, pastel pink chairs. Like, I
Yeah.
like this. Hey, this ship is kind of
Yeah.
cooler than yours in some ways. Um,
You're right. I
There's
like
a
the
lot of 80s
NX-01.
yeah.
beige going on and early 90s beige in TNG. So, yes, I do think the NX-01 is a cooler ship
Mhm.
to walk around in because there's more to look at.
Yeah.
There's more going on those walls than those
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
Right.
smooth, and the carpet, all the carpet.
Yes,
Yeah.
and all the carpet. Oh my gosh. Well,
I have
John,
a question,
Shoot.
go.
real quick.
Oh,
So,
go. Shoot.
who is your dream interview
Oh,
that you
that's a good
haven't
question.
gotten to interview yet? Who is your
In Star
dream
Trek.
interview?
Uh,
Star Trek, any
there's so many people, like, in the larger entertainment sphere, but for Star Trek, I've talked to almost everybody. Um, I would love, because I've only had 1 minute with him. Well, I think I had maybe less than 3 minutes on Zoom, and then 1 minute in person at the Picard season 3 premiere. But I would love 10 minutes, 20 minutes, an hour with Patrick Stewart. I
Yeah.
think of all, and, I was able to have William Shatner, which was a total surprise. Kate Mulgrew was great. Avery Brooks, Avery Brooks is the one, I would love to talk to,
yeah.
and we'd end up not talking about Star Trek because I don't think he wants to, but I would love just to hear him talk about life and
No.
music and jazz and all these things. But yes, so Avery Brooks, then
Yes.
Patrick Stewart right behind him for a lengthy interview. But
Right.
yes,
Okay.
That's a good one.
Mhm.
That was a
yeah,
great question. And I
I
agree.
too would love to just sit and be
oh,
in the presence of Avery Brooks and have
Mhm.
him talk to me, not talk to me, just see
Yeah.
him be himself because I
Mhm.
have loved that man since I was 14 years old. And the first time I
Yeah.
saw
mm.
Deep Space Nine, well, not the first time I saw Deep Space Nine, but the first time I saw the pilot, I'm just like,
Mhm.
DS9. Yeah, DS9 is
Yeah.
my favorite Star
I
Trek. DS9
now
is my
okay,
favorite Star Trek, and Cisco is my
yeah,
captain. He's number both. They're both
Yeah.
number
same.
one. And everybody else fights for number two.
Mhm. I
Yeah.
agree.
No, I mean, Archer's probably my number one, and then it's kind of like the opposite. The reason I like Archer is because he actually had to
Hmm.
figure it all out. He didn't
Mhm.
have the rule book. He had to make the rule book
Yeah.
that all of our other captains got to start
Got
using.
to throw away and do what they wanted to
Yeah,
do
Yeah.
anyway.
And so, but that's why. But again, you talk about Avery, you talk Cisco. I mean, oh my God, his performances were
hmm
just. I mean, he should have had
yeah,
an Emmy.
absolutely.
I mean, just be honest with it. He should have had one. Um, there's a lot of things that should have happened, and I can and you've met him, and I can tell you this. I feel like, and he'll admit, and he will. I feel like when we're around, I feel like when I'm around Sirach in person, that's just that. Well,
Yeah.
that's his dad. I mean, that was
Yeah.
his TV dad, but
Very
also
much,
his
very much so,
dad
very
dad.
much so.
And,
You know, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm so fortunate to be able to call
and
Sirach a friend. Like he's a genuine friend. You know, like
yeah.
when I lived in LA, once a year we'd
Mhm.
go out for steaks together, and you know, and we shoot the shit. You know, he was one of the first people from
Mhm.
Star Trek I met when I went to LA, because I went to Picard season 2 did a pop up of 10 Forward in downtown LA, so I got invited to that, and you know that
Mhm.
opening night was like all of Star Trek in LA was there, and I'd already known Ryan and Sirach kind of like virtually, because I'd written about the seventh
Mhm.
rule for Screen Rant, so they knew who I was. But that was the first time meeting them in
Yeah.
person. But I was just struck by well, the first thing I was struck by was how tall Sirach is in real life, and, like
I know,
you
me
know, it just
too.
completely disarms you. Like,
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's a full head
yes,
taller
yes,
than me.
but
Yeah.
It's funny to
but
see me
such
stand
a
next to him.
kind, warm, personable, like human being. Like he's fantastic. But also, you know, he's got an edge
Yeah.
to him. He's got a sense of humor. You know, yeah,
Oh,
he's
yeah.
very, and he's very bright. He's very, you know, I don't, I'm sorry, I don't mean to sound like I'm surprised. He's very, very bright, and he's very funny, and he's very sharp, and you know, and I mean, kind of like me also, I relate to him in a way like he also wasn't really a Star Trek fan. He became one through Seventh Rule. In fact, you know, I don't know
Correct.
if he ever told you the story about how that Aaron Eisenberg basically dragged him kicking and screaming into
Yes.
into hosting Seventh Rule.
Well,
Yeah.
I asked him about that when I interviewed him about, how did the seventh rule come, into fruition, and and he said that Aaron's, he told him about it, and then he's like, every week,
Everyone.
or he's like, I got to do this all the time. Oh, every week,
And
what?
that's such a Jim Sisko thing to say, by the way.
And
Like,
Yeah.
yeah, and then he also talked about, and it's in the interview, so I'm
yeah,
not spilling anything, about how he did not. Like, did I actually talk about that on camera? Now I'm trying to think about that. Anyway, if it is, I'll have to double check it. Anyway, he talked about how you know Aaron knew he
yes,
wasn't
yeah,
watching the
he's talked about
episodes.
that before. He told me that in interviews. So,
Yeah,
yeah, that's public knowledge.
yeah. So I couldn't remember, but I'd heard that, and so he said, Aaron was like, I know you're not watching them, and then he talked about, it may have been during his mm, the other iteration of the Decon Chamber show, when he was on there with them, and he made a comment about, somewhere I read that he said that when he was at Aaron's funeral and given the eulogy, he, admitted, yeah, I wasn't watching the episodes and stuff like that. And he's like, yeah, I know. It's just so weird. But yeah,
No, he
he's just, he knows no strangers. And if you're in his
Hmm.
group, you're his group. Like all of us, I mean, God dang. Yeah.
yeah, kind-hearted, warm,
Hmm.
and very, very witty. And
Yes.
sometimes if you're not quick enough, you're just like, "Wait, what? Did he
Yeah,
say that?" You're like, "Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, he did." There are
Hmm.
definitely times he's gotten me in stitches while we're recording, and I'm really happy I keep myself on mute, because otherwise then they'd be stuck with, Zoom going in on me, because I'm the one making noise. Like, "Oh, no, she's making noise." I'm like, "No, I have to be muted because
Hmm.
I know Sirach is gonna make me
Yeah,
bust a gut." So,
he is. Well,
Oh,
John, I thank you
oh
for
my
coming
God.
on today, or today for you, tonight for us. This has been fun, even with the technical difficulties. This has been great. You've got in a way, you have the career that I'm envious of right now, because I want to have some of these interviews. That I want 10 minutes with Kate. Somehow, actually, I want an
So
hour
did I.
with Kate, but I mean, bigger
you'll
shoes.
start with 10 minutes. Like,
I'll
I'll take
take 10. I mean, I will take 10. You know, but would love for an hour. So I'm just gonna
Sure.
ask you real quick: what piece of Star Trek technology do you wish
Oh
existed
yes,
today?
yes. So you know, you go through the whole thing with the transporter would be nice for me, since I'm 9,000 miles away from
Yeah,
home.
for you.
Replicators. I'm not keen on replicators because I'm a foodie and I don't want reconstituted food. I would like the real thing. So I will actually say the holodeck. I would love the holodeck because I feel that is the best of
Oh,
all worlds, because you can have your travel, you can have your whatever food and drink,
yeah.
and specifically, if I had the holodeck, I would rebuild build the program and put myself in of Vic Fontaine's 1960s hotel casino, and I would be the third roommate with Vic and Nog. That is
would
my
be an
dream.
awesome thing to do. Yeah,
that'd be a dream.
Love it. I
Great
think
answer.
most of us would want to be at Vic's.
I love Vic. I love Vic Fontaine. I love all those episodes. I mean, one of the greatest moments I think of all TV that I've ever watched was the end of Bada Bing Bada Bang when Cisco and Vic sang together. I still adore.
Yes.
Just so incredible.
Yeah. The best is yet to come.
God dang, those are such great episodes. Again, why DS9? It should be everybody's number one. Really, it should just be the rules. So, all right. Well, thank you for coming on tonight, and we will definitely do this again. There's no question about
anytime. This is really great. I mean, I feel like it flew by, even with the technical difficulties. Yeah, let's have it again. Let's do it again. I'm happy to talk Star Trek with you guys anytime.
All right.
Hey,
thank you.
Thank you. You have a good night. Okay.
Thank you for watching The Transporter Room. For just $5 per month, enjoy ad-free access to this episode and all previous ones, plus exclusive bonus content. Sign up now on Patreon.